Good morning, everybody. How are you this morning? It's absolutely overcast, but stinking hot in beautiful Brisbane, Australia. If you're here this morning, say g'day and let me know where you're from. It's always wonderful to have you here, and if you're here for the replay, do a hashtag replay. This morning, I want to share with you and talk to you about the stress overwhelm trigger. What I've come to understand over the last week and a half, and more specifically the last, from the beginning of this week onwards, is that we have different ways of being triggered. So initially in childhood development, when our brain was developing, we were overwhelmed and our senses became blunted. We didn't have language. We didn't know how to file away everything that was happening to us because it's so traumatic. And so it sits in our amygdala, wherever my bowl is, all the sparkles. And because it's not filed away in the hippocampus, we can be triggered at any time. But what I've come to understand is that in adulthood, we can be triggered not just because of something that's already existing in our brain, like sitting there waiting to be triggered and it's unknown, but also when we have an overwhelm of stress happening in our lives. Now today, I wanted you to bring along just a basic outline of your day in order that you could sit and look at it and go, right, well, I can see what I normally do in my day. Now, if you were to add something into your day, you need to know whether that's feels overwhelming for you and that you don't know how to fit it into your order, okay? That's the important part. Sorry, I didn't turn my phone off. Now, we'll just grab the infographic for you as well because we've got a few things to look at this morning. Okay, now, so this is what we have to do. We need our daily routine written down and time. Time frames are so important because of because we need our prefrontal cortex for order, okay? And we haven't necessarily engaged with our prefrontal cortex as much as we could have because we do everything back to front compared to somebody who didn't experience trauma. Now, when we've got that list in front of us, we can see, okay, well, that time's full, that time I could rest, that time I work, this time I've got to do this for the kids, and so on, right? So we have an order and we see the time frames. Then what happens is something comes along, whether it's out of the blue or it's a, request from somebody else, or my example this week is that I had an exam coming up, but what I did last week was I realised that I had to pre-plan everything, okay? So what I did was I went, okay, this is my day-to-day life. That's I normally do. So, 2 hours before you see me, I'm up and have a routine for that. Then I come and do this, and then each day is different depending on what I need to do. But then I had to slot in study for an exam, the time for the exam, and the fact that I had to get up at 4 a.m, well, before 4 and start at 4. So in order to do that, I had to recognise that my brain was going to go, right, this is a stress overwhelm. I have no language for it because this is all new to me, and new to me, especially as an adult, because I haven't done an exam like that before, decades ago, but we won't mention that. And so when you get something new that comes into your life, you have to be able to say, right, this is my order of my day. Is that an added stress? Is it going to overwhelm me in the manner that it's going to trigger me? Okay, so we want to get in ahead of the trigger. So what we find is if you don't have your daily order written down, then you stay in disorganised attachment. There is no order. I don't like to use the term spaced out, but the actual clinical term for it is just shot off at the moment. But we lose, we're in hypervigilance or hypovigilance, and we lose chunks of time. So this is why we want to engage our prefrontal cortex in this order so that we don't get triggered and go into hypervigilance and lose tracks of time, okay? So what I did was I said to everybody, I let everybody know, okay, next week videos are Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so that there was no overwhelm for me preparing for it, etc., and I had time to study. So I didn't get triggered, I didn't go into hypovigilance, and I didn't lose track of time. However, the one thing I did notice is there still wasn't overwhelm because it's all new, and I wasn't able to do some of the things in my day that I normally would do. So some days I couldn't do gym. It just didn't happen because I was using my prefrontal cortex to study. So if the extra stress that comes into your life, if you've got to use different parts of your brain for it, then you will find that there are certain parts of your day that you can't do. And that's okay, it's normal, because when you're doing whatever the added stress is or the new experience is, you're going to find that you're creating new neural pathways. So you will be a bit more tired than normal. So yesterday I got up early, did the exam, spent a little time here with everyone, and then I just slept for hours. But I knew, I was aware that my brain was creating new neural pathways because I'd worked my way into doing a different order of things. And because I've been doing this for years, I now understand the process. So it's a really healthy thing to give yourself some time to rest as well. Now, if you've got kids, there's no reason you can't do this because you can train them as well. You can teach them that, their fine motor skills are coming from their prefrontal cortex. The ability to order will come from there. And so we've got to sit down and we've got to put today in an order as well, okay? So as you practice the order of your day, the trauma takes a step back and you begin to be able to reclaim more and more, and you begin to become more natural to putting stress into an order as well, okay? Now, it might sound a bit funny putting stress into an order, but it is. I'm going down Saturday morning, actually tomorrow morning, to help out at our new church. So what I need to do is sit down and say, right, up at this time, picking up my girlfriend at this time, cleaning from this time to this time. And when my prefrontal cortex has that order in place, it's almost like putting steps. So when you're going up a set of steps, you're putting one foot after the other, one step after the other. And so it's a reassurance within ourselves that no, I don't need to go off track. I don't need to be emotionally dysregulated. I can keep going because these are the steps that I've put in place. And it also gives us a really good foundation to enjoy our days and enjoy what we're doing and enjoy the new things. I was talking to a friend of mine who's been on this big journey with me, walked alongside me as I've come through and healed. And she said to me, yeah, it makes sense that because the trauma in our childhood happened repeatedly, then we have to do this stuff repeatedly. And I went, yeah, we're retraining our brain, reconnecting different parts of our brain. Hi, Charlotte. Charlotte says, I use a list every day. I can't function without it. Oh, same. I can't function without a list. And it's for each day. But what I do too is I make the list the night before so that when I go to bed, I've got it in order, and then I can make my thoughts focus on, no, I don't have to have monkey brain and go off track. This is the order for tomorrow. And I actually find I wake up feeling heaps better because the day is already ordered from the night before. I'm still challenged by putting my evenings in order. I don't know if you found that, but I'm still trying to nail down, right, at this time everything ceases, and this is my nightly routine. I haven't nailed that down yet. I don't know why, but I'm working on it. Okay, now during this process, trust me, we must be willing to be honest with ourselves and with others around us, okay? I say this because it's being able to say, listen, okay, the best way I can do it is give you an example. So friends of mine were running a cafe, and at the time, so this is a number of years ago, at the time, just being around people was anxiety inducing for me because I didn't have a lot of my verbal ability back, okay? So I didn't have the ability to think quick enough to respond when they spoke, and it made me feel really, really uncomfortable. So what I used to do was I'd go clean up the dishes and just smile and, just nod at everyone and take them back to the kitchen, or I'd stand there and just take the money and just nod. I'd do these simple things even though I couldn't talk a lot because it helped me be around people and reduce the anxiety. Now, my point is, I told my friends that this is what would happen. This is how I would feel. My body may react this way. I might be perspiring, etc., etc. And they were really supportive of me. They understood that I couldn't necessarily get involved in, a busy kitchen or a busy environment, but I could do one small thing, and every one small step made a difference. So being able to be honest with people around us, and with your kids too. When my kids were teenagers, they said to me, Mum, why are you angry? Oh, I'd say, I'm not angry. What's wrong? And then it took me a while to realise that I was tired. So the communication's got to go both ways so that people aren't thinking, well, what's wrong with them? Okay? Because we are the first generation that have this information, we actually have to be kind and educate people about what's happening for us, and that it's our brain that's disordered and we're busy putting it back in order. Hi, Jodie. Okay, Jodie says she's overwhelmed by lists and not do every task. Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow, yeah. So if you're overwhelmed by the list, the next question you need to ask is, do you need to take a step back and start saying, okay, I'm only going to put half as much on my list in order that I don't feel overwhelmed. So put the essentials on. So it depends what part of your recovery you're at as to what you'll feel comfortable with that list. So if somebody who is in stage 1 of recovery, cooking is just about impossible. So you focus on sleep and just a simple routine, shower and food. But cooking is nearly impossible, so you have to find simple things. I have what I call recovery salad. You buy the packets from the supermarket of like coleslaw and spinach and the little carton of tomatoes and grated cheese and just open them up and chuck it all in. And salad, too easy. Because we don't have the brain wherewithal at that time, at that stage of recovery, to do elaborate salads. Oh, look, I used to spend hours in the kitchen cooking elaborate salads and all sorts of stuff, but we can't do that. So if the list is overwhelming, see where you can modify it or get some good examples. And look, Google is your friend for lots of different ideas, especially for mums. Oh my goodness, these days you can Google lots of simple meal ideas for kids, okay? And especially if you've got fussy eaters, my goodness, we need it. Okay, so be honest with yourself, what you can and can't do. And the good thing is, if you start with your list, say, Jodie, you halve it, then what you can do is, it makes you feel better when you achieve half a list. So then it gives you more energy and more inspiration to add one thing the next day. So it's building up our brain's ability to cope with an order and to do as much as we can. An exercise physiologist I worked with for a while said the best thing you can do is focus for 2 hours at a time. So I sit for 2 hours and do whatever work I've got to do and then take a break, because our brain needs it. It's, sometimes we can beat ourselves up and say, guilt, bad, because I'm not up and working. No, our brain needs time to process and create the new neural pathways. So no beating ourselves up. And that takes practice too. Okay, so extra stress means two things. We have to stop and evaluate. So we have to sit back, look at where we're going, look what's going to happen, and we have to evaluate how it's going to impact our order, that we've got today. And we have to reorder our day or days in order to fit whatever is coming in, the extra things that are coming in. I know when my kids were at school, one of the things that used to really stress me out were all the notes that came home from school. I don't know if you feel that way, but I had 3 kids at school and the notes coming home, it was just like crazy. So I wish I understood then that I needed to sit down and put them all in order. It would have helped a lot. Charlotte says, I feel so much better with a list. Without it, I feel anxious and get down on myself for not getting anything done. Yeah, I understand. I can understand that. I spent a really, really long time, years, repeating to myself, but you didn't get this done, but you didn't get that done. And I look back now, hindsight's a wonderful tool. And like yesterday, after I finished my exam, I went, oh my goodness, 4 years ago, I couldn't have done that. I did not have the brain capacity or the ability within my brain to sit down, study, remember information, and then sit down and do an exam as well. It couldn't have been done at all. So when this is the hard part of recovery, is that we don't see the results instantly. They take time to look back. And then 4 years ago, when I did my counselling diploma, at that stage, I knew that 4 years before that, I couldn't have studied either. Okay, so I had to do a lot of work to get my brain to get back online. But that's okay, it's doable. There's hope. Breathe. It helps with the integration. So everything we've talked about today may feel overwhelming, but what we want to do is take some deep breaths and go, it's manageable. Remember, from childhood developmental trauma, our brain's first response, whether we like it or not, is fear. Somebody who hasn't experienced fear, their first response to something that gets added in is, this is manageable. So we need to train ourselves to, this is manageable, I'm going to step back, evaluate, and go from there as to how I can put it in. If you need any help or any ideas, just jump into group, and we're always happy to help out. Everyone's happy to help out with lots of different ideas as well. Thanks, ladies. Thanks for joining in today. It's always wonderful to have you here, and it always helps the people that come afterwards and watch as well. It gives them ideas as to what's happening and helps us know that we're not alone in this battle together, and we're the turtles because we win the race. Okay, have a most gorgeous weekend, and I'll be back next week with some more information to help us recover and regain our lives. Blessings and dreams.